And we're back. Welcome back. Football on Full Heel. This is a special episode. This is our 20th episode. 20th episode and our third in the Corona pandemic, in the times of Corona. My name is Frankie. Today I'm joined by Andres, the boy.
Yo.
And as usual, Donkeytron behind the boards in the studio, back at headquarters. Unfortunately, Johnny could not be reached for this. He may still join, he may still call in, but he couldn't be reached. We're having some technical difficulties. You could call it that. But the show must go on for tonight because
I heard
excited.
Hornets.
Well, I'm excited for a couple reasons. We're coming off the back of UFC 249, which is the first live sporting event of any kind in a long time. And it was great. Lived up to the hype. Great fights. So if you didn't want to pay for the pay-per-view, you can probably find a stream or something by now. So you definitely should check those out. But there's fights tomorrow too. So for those of you guys who are into combat sports, into MMA, there's a fight night that you can watch tomorrow. Glover Teixeira versus Lionheart Smith, right? And then fights again on Saturday. And then even more exciting news for Saturday. The Bundesliga is back. Yes, football. We're finally going to get it again. And the German Bundesliga, some might say, is one of the most exciting of all. So, again, really excited. Also very optimistic and very hopeful because, again, we are in the time of coronavirus, COVID-19, right? So we've already had players test positive in the Bundesliga at Cologne, and then in the second division at Dresden. Dresden is in the second division, and the whole team was quarantined after people were testing positive, while at Cologne, only a few players were quarantined. But Germany claims to have enough tests and is confident in their ability to keep everybody isolated and safe. So they're coming back this weekend. Similarly, Portugal is scheduled to come back with their National League on June 4th, and Turkey's coming back a week after that on June 12th. The other big ones, Spain and Italy, are in training. Players are already being tested and coming out of quarantine and returning to full-on training. Where we don't know a whole lot is in the Premier League. The British government gave the okay to start June 1st, but we have a lot of players like Danny Rose who are very hesitant, right, and worried about their safety, understandably so, as they should be. So the Premier League is probably the biggest question mark. We don't know what the heck is going to happen there, how it's going to happen. It's all kinds of just big question marks there. But everywhere else, there's a start date or there's training going on. So, yeah, again, I'm excited and optimistic. How you feeling about it, Andres?
I'm excited. I mean, when's the last time we watched some live soccer? It's been a while, right?
Mid-March. Yeah, 2 months. 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was always going to be a benefit for the first league, to open up and kind of get everyone's attention. A lot of TV ratings, a lot of money, in the Bundesliga right now. So, I mean, they're just taking advantage of it being like one of the first major teams, leagues, to open up and grab everyone's attentions, get the morale up, like you said. I don't know. It might be a little bit too early, but Germany's been a little bit ahead of the curve with, testing and getting everyone on pace to being safe. But there's still a lot of, unknowns as to how the virus is going to react, to live sports, I feel. I don't know. I'm still optimistic it'll be okay, but a lot of question marks.
Yeah, no, indeed. Like we said, a couple players on a couple teams have tested positive. I think I read earlier today that Germany has started loosening some of their, lockdown or isolation policies, and already they've seen another spike, right, in infections. So, again, hoping for the best, obviously, because everybody's safety is of utmost importance. Everybody's health is of the utmost importance. But That being said, there are being considerations taken, right? The Bundesliga and Germany have enough tests where they can test players before and after matches, as well as staff and camera crews and all of that. There's also going to be no spectators, so they're going to go on with no people watching. Now, one thing that was interesting that you brought up was there's a lot of money, right, on the line. Unfortunately, economic factors like that are going to be taken into account before some other things usually, right? Money talks, basically. But Germany's got the highest average attendance, I believe, in the big European leagues. So that match day revenue for a lot of these smaller teams or teams that sell out, like Dortmund, it's going to be probably going to be a hit, right? So, but again, it's for the better.
Well, there's a lot of teams like, Dortmund and the Wasserfallon, they rely on that atmosphere. So it'll be interesting to see how they react to, an empty stadium.
Right. Especially
who's at an advantage, who's at a disadvantage. I mean, it's hard to say. Even from the Champions League game, it was really hard to tell who had the edge.
If at all, right?
If at all,
that mental edge. The magic of Anfield is gone with no spectators.
Yeah.
But yeah, in addition to that, well, just kind of a side note, I think that's a smart call, right? And in any case, as much as I was an MLS season ticket holder, I'm not for this season because I need the money. But I was, and I loved going to matches, but even if I did have season tickets, I probably wouldn't feel comfortable going for the rest of this season, at least, right? Or at least not full-heartedly, so I get it. They're also taking, because, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit again, but let's not forget that we now know that the Champions League match between Atalanta and Valencia in Milan at the San Siro ended up being one of the outbreak events in Italy, right? A lot of people from the Atalanta fans, I forget what it's the name of the town.
Bergamo.
There you go, Bergamo. Thanks, Andres. Bergamo, right? A lot of people from Bergamo went to Milan to watch the match, and then they got sick cheering on their team and took it back home. Right.
I think 40% of the population of Bergamo went to watch their first ever, Champions League game, and
then everybody got sick, and then even worse, right? Players and fans later went to Spain, right, to watch. Or no, I think Valencia at that point had already shut down fans, right? But the players spread it, right? It got back all the way to Spain. And they're saying that from that outbreak, it ended up going to the Iberian Peninsula too, right? So definitely a smart call.
Well, the Serie A, the prime minister said, if there's an outbreak at all with any of these players, they're shutting down the whole thing. So, I don't even know how the dynamics of playing under a pandemic is going to affect the players. Do you go all in on tackles, or what people are going to hold back on touching each other? Or how are everyone going to respond?
Yeah, no, I was reading something that sounded really ridiculous right before we went on. The FA is going to advise players to turn away when they go into a tackle. So basically not look, right? I don't, so that there's no face-to-face contact, right? When you're going in for the ball. Yeah. How do you, and then I think, again, like I mentioned, the Premier League is the one league where probably players have voiced the most opposition to coming back, right? I think I was reading, it was a coalition of 50 players, and Danny Rose outspokenly came out and said he doesn't give a damn, right, about the national morale. He cares about his and the player's safety, which is a decent point. It's just quite a way to put it, right? But I'm glad you brought that up too, right? Because the ministers in Italy have said that if one player tests positive, they're pulling the plug, right? Other places, other governments are being taken into account and are actually, I guess, the last word in a lot of these places, and they're the ones who are given the green light, right? The English government gave the green light, the German government gave the green light, and in fact, in France, it was the government who shot down the rest of the season there. So it'll really come down to what the government and health officials determine is best. So I mean, but to what Andres' point, be on the lookout, because at any moment Serie A looks like it could be coming back. That's a league that first and second place teams are separated by 2 points right now, or is it a point? 1 point, right? 1 point.
I think there's one game ahead. I think Juve has one game.
It's Juve and Lazio are neck and neck. Inter kind of disappointingly dipped a little bit at the end there. There's also the other thing that's going around. I can't remember. Man, I'm escaping now. I should have written it down what it was specifically, but I think it's FIFA. Now, I was gonna say UEFA initially, but I'm pretty sure it was FIFA. Has added given the leagues the choice to implement the 5 substitutions per match.
And use VAR.
I don't know about you. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of people who've come out and voiced their disapproval of that. That 5 subs would give teams like Manchester City, who have so much depth, that would give them the benefit, right? But at the same time, if we're gonna finish these matches, right, like Italy, they still had 12 matches, right? You said 20 potentially if a team is going all the way to the Champions League and the Coppa Italia like Juventus, right? So how are you gonna get all those in? And how are you gonna get those in without players getting injured, right? Players getting tired. So I think that's smart. I think
City has, I think, like 20 games if they play all their FA Cup games, their league games. I think they're still in the League Cup, FA Cup, and they
won the League Cup already, right?
So they still have like around 20 games if they're playing. If you include, I think, champions as well. So I mean, death for them comes in handy. But 5 subs, I mean, people are gonna get tired, and rightfully so. They haven't played in over like 2 months, so it makes sense.
The one thing with that too is it's 5 players total you can sub in, but it's only on 3 occasions, if that makes sense. So there's still only 3 substitutions that you can make in a match, but it can be up to 5 players. I was trying to think that through and make it sound as clear as I possibly could, but sub in 5 players, but only at 3 times, right? So what that means is you at one of those subs, you'd sub in 2 players, right?
To me, this whole like restart kind of just seems like those preseason tournaments that they have, like the ICC or the Audi Cup,
Yeah.
You play, kind of like a fast-paced couple matches between like teams, and there's 5 subs. I mean, so it'll be more competitive though, but it kind of seems like that. So you really don't know what to expect. At least I don't.
Yeah,
Some teams who have momentum, I mean, you can argue that they might still have momentum, but I know, like, for the Bundesliga, Bayern was red hot. So it might be a struggle for them to, come back to that form after a couple weeks.
They were red hot and without Lewandowski, and now he's potentially back, right? And one of the big ones that we talk about and argue about is Suarez, right? Suarez is ready to come back, right, for Barcelona, and you and Johnny are adamant that it'll be a game changer for them, right? I'm not as convinced, right? He's going to be short of fitness, of game. He's not going to be up to game speed, right? He's been out of the game for 4 months, so it's going to be a while. But you also brought up the good point that at this point, everybody else hasn't played in 2 months either, right? Healthy or not. So it'll be really interesting, right? But something else that's interesting in regards to reopening and player safety and all of that, the MLS is floating some very, very interesting ideas. The commissioner has been floating the idea of taking all of the 26 teams in MLS, having them stay in Orlando, Florida, and play the matches at Orlando Stadium and at Disney World. Disney World has like an athletic complex and a couple of like world-class, world-sized pitches there. So they're floating the idea and asking players what their opinion is of, playing a mini tournament or like 2 months at Orlando, so that they're not exposed, their families aren't exposed, fans aren't exposed, and they still get a season in, right? So that's an interesting idea, right? That's a very American solution, right? And I say American because it's a playoff, right? It's a tournament. Right? They aren't really. There are tournaments, right? That's what the cups are, right? And the Champions League is a tournament, but American sports always had like a long season before they're done in the playoffs, right? So that's intriguing to me, right? Again, I appreciate that they're looking out for player safety, but I don't know how that would work, right?
I think it's a case by case depending on the country. I mean, like I said, Germany was a little further ahead of the curve. South Korea, I think, where it was also, mass testing early, and I think they also came back, didn't they? Their league came back on, the South Korean league.
Yeah, the K League, I think, just did start back up. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, France, I don't think France was equipped to full restart, so they canceled. And now you got teams like Lyon trying to
It's a very unique situation, and it's going to require unique solutions, right? It's not going to be neat. But
here in the US, I feel like if you're going to restart MLS, you also got to restart a couple, other sports. So if that gets a green light, then you have to assume you can get the green light for other sports.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, I'm just really reassured by the fact that they're thinking outside of the box and looking towards player safety. Because there's other sports where baseball in particular right now, it's getting pretty ugly in public between like the players and the league, and it's making it seem like both parties are really only interested in the money. We know for a fact that every league and most teams are motivated by money, right? But at the very least, they're thinking outside of the box, and at least making it seem like they've got everybody's best interest. So again, the Bundesliga is exciting because they're kind of like a guinea pig, right? They're going to be everybody's eyes are going to be on that, not just because obviously we're thirsty for soccer, but because everybody's going to wonder how this all works, right? And what happens if, somebody tests positive or, God forbid, something else happened, right? So very, very exciting. Very,
like you said, they're probably going to test before and after matches. I think that was a possibility, which I kind of countered and said, that's a lot of tests. There's probably areas and hospitals and cities that need those testing. So it's kind of like, I don't know if you're prioritizing the right people, not the right people, but for the right reasons. Sport, entertainment over public safety. It's kind of like
picture. No, absolutely. But I think, like, for example, Germany is probably pretty well equipped, and I believe they have enough tests and have a healthcare system that right now can support it, right? And if not, then that's messed up, right? But yeah, all that being said, it resumes this weekend. All of the teams are playing either Saturday or Sunday. It was initially spread out over Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think a team plays on Monday too, if I'm not mistaken. But or there's
I'm sorry, is this weekly? I didn't see the schedule.
Yes.
Or weekly?
Yeah, I think it's going to be weekly because the team that is in quarantine now in the second division in Dresden, they're in quarantine, and they're going to miss their first 2 matches while they're in quarantine. So I think, yeah, it would be. I think it's going to be once a week. I think the Bundesliga is one of those two that has 18 teams. So instead of the 38 matches, they have 34, right? So they don't have as many as some other leagues have. And I think, one of the things that they're kind of planned for is kind of some wiggle room, right? Or some room for error. So they are spacing it out so that if something does happen and they need to relocate or somebody has to drop out or players have to get isolated, they've got enough space and enough time to get them in. I think, right? Question mark.
Yeah, question.
I think, and I say this because again, I read that Dresden, they're going to miss 2 matches because of their isolation, and the president or the leader, whoever's in charge of the Bundesliga, said that it's fine because they kind of designed it, the schedule to include some room for it. So, all of that being said, for anybody who wasn't paying attention or who quite frankly forgot, just because it's been a while, Bayern Munich is still in first place. They're on 55 points. And like Andres pointed out earlier, they were on fire, winning matches. And this without their best player. Lewandowski has been on an absolute tear this season. I think scored more goals than anybody else in the calendar year 2019. And he was out for the last month, and Bayern still did it without him. So they're rightfully in first place. Good collection of talented players there under the leadership of Hansi Flick. And now Miro Klose there, right? Miroslav Klose, who used to play at Bayern and is a German legend, is coaching there. Not saying that'll make any huge impression right off the bat, right? But
it's a club legend. I mean, it's kind of like, having someone with power and, status there at the club.
Well, experience, right? Some know-how, some clout.
Clout, definitely.
But yeah, they're obviously the favorite. They're 4 points clear of second place. They had some injuries that hopefully they've been able to recover some players in the meantime, right? Lewandowski being the principal one. Mueller's had an excellent season, leading anybody in Europe in assists. He's got 16 total assists for the season. I think actually De Bruyne is tied on 16. He's up there as well. But Mueller's whipping in work. Serge Gnabry from the wing, just very good goal-scoring output. Absolutely demolished Spurs, right? In the Champions League. Thiago is the Barcelona-bred passer, who's just kind of behind the possession there, right? And then you've got my biggest critique or my biggest doubt is their defense, right? Because I argue that they are kind of patchwork, right? I feel like they've got a bunch of center backs playing out of position, right? Alphonso Davies is a young player who's a winger in MLS and played further up the pitch prior to this, is now one of the best left backs in Europe, right? I know you kept an eye on him. His speed and skill is impressive.
If you watch the highlights against Chelsea in Champions League, he kind of took everyone on that wing for a stellar assist.
Well, not only that, I've seen a couple of clips of his recovery. Like, I mean, he one of the things that we point out and laugh about is how Trent Alexander-Arnold is always raiding up the pitch, right, and leaving a lot of space behind him, and how teams could exploit that. You can't exploit Alphonso Davies does go up and leave a lot of space behind him, but he's so fast that he's proving that that's something that he can do. And once he learns how to defend, he can be really, really capable there, right? Or once he betters his position. Alaba's playing in center back, even though he's kind of like a left back, or he's a Swiss Army knife. That guy can play in a lot of positions too. Sula, who's like one of their natural center backs, is out injured. I don't know if he's back yet, but he had a serious knee injury. They have
he was on course to be one of the better center backs in the world. Kind of like they were tooting him to be kind of hitting that Virgil van Dijk, level in a couple of years. So he was one to look for.
Sula is a good player, but I just wonder about his mobility, right? And he just seems kind of slow to me. Other than that, because I would argue Van Dijk can do it all, right? And then Lucas Hernandez might be back, right? I thought he was a left back, but I'm seeing a lot of projections and a lot of lineups with him at center back. And then they have Pavard playing right back, who I thought was a center back too. And that's really, I guess, my biggest critique or my biggest question mark of theirs is they have some youth inexperience in terms of players playing slightly out of position. So that's what I wonder about them the most, because their front six at the midfield and up, there's no question their talent and their speed is there, right? And there's no doubting that.
I mean, Bayern is Bayern, bro. They have the most quality, the best quality in the league. I mean, you know what you're gonna get with Bayern week in, week out. They are. I mean, one of my critiques for them is they are capable of like switching off after the first half, and they'll probably be like, oh well, we're letting these teams come back, and they really shouldn't. But I mean, after the Christmas break, or after the winter break, they were on fire. So I don't know. I hope they can do a similar restart and just pick up where they left off, but it's a big unknown for like every team in the Bundesliga. Even the other ones that they play this weekend. Dortmund, I mean, maybe Haaland might not, hit that momentum that he was doing when he was in Champions and hitting those goals of 3 goals in 7 minutes.
Good segue there, because Bayern, like we said, has been unstoppable all season. Dortmund has been unstoppable since January. Whether or not you think that's a coincidence with the signing of Erling Haaland, right? The kid, Majin Buu, our boy Majin Buu, he was on a tear. Dortmund was looking pretty good before everything stopped, right? I think the question with Dortmund recent times has always been about their defense. Again, like I was saying about Bayern. Front six, we're talking Jadon Sancho, who has, I think, more goals and assists combined in the Bundesliga in the last 2 years than anybody else, right? He's in double digits goals and assists.
I think he's second in goal and second in assists.
He's 19 years old. Crazy. Haaland, also 19 years old, came in and scored in like every match for the most part, right? It was great. I think he's got like 10 goals at least already for Dortmund, and he got there in January. Elsewhere, you've got.
Do you think it would be wise for them to all stay together, knowing that the market crashed and their value has gone down?
Well, here's the thing. Dortmund is a great team for young players to prove themselves and get good experience. So their time is now, right? This team has to realize that they got to go out and win it, because, like you said, Sancho's probably gone after this year, right? Haaland, who knows, right? Marco Reus is coming back from injury. That's a good player. They have Julian Brandt there. Just, again, another team that front six, I would say, could go against anybody. But then in defense is, again, big question mark. I think Dortmund's last game against Bayern was 5-0. And the game before that, it was 4-0. So Dortmund is prone to defensive collapses, like bad defensive mistakes, and then especially against Bayern. But if they can, keep that young, dynamic, fast attack going, they really should, and they have to, because this might be their only chance to catch. If Bayern wins, I think it's their 7th in a row, right? The last time anybody won the Bundesliga was Dortmund in the Jurgen Klopp days, right? In 2012, I think. So I would say this is probably their best opportunity. It probably has been. Well, last year they were in first for most of the season before they collapsed at the end too. But I would still give them the slight edge because of their young talent over third place team right now, Leipzig. Leipzig is only a point back from Dortmund, but they also have really, really good young players, right? Timo Werner. They have
Mancano, the defender that's highly regarded right now.
Yep, the center back, right? The French center back there. They have Sabitzer. I believe he's the captain for the Austrian national team, and he's scoring just bangers out of midfield. They have the young American Tyler Adams there too. Tyler Adams is a beast too.
Nagelsmann, the head coach, he's been having them play some fast-paced, scoring, pressing game. So I mean, he's definitely one of the youngest coaches to manage a team and bring them up to that level.
Definitely high scoring.
American.
Right? They had a streak where it was at least 3 goals that they were dropping on teams earlier this season, right? And now the more I think about it, yeah, they have a lot of young talent there. We're talking about Patrick Schick is there on loan. We're talking about that Nkunku, who they got from PSG. And I would say similar situation as Dortmund. All of those guys have looked really good and probably brought their stock up enough for other bigger teams to come out and call them out, right? Or maybe, again, you brought up the good point. In this market, after this crisis, who knows, right? We're probably going to see more loans, more swaps, but maybe another young, promising team that gets broken up there, right, for its parts. Who would you give the edge to then, Leipzig or Dortmund?
I probably would give it to. I'd probably give it to Dortmund right now, just because they have a stronger front three in Sancho and Haaland and Royce and whoever you put in that at midfield as well. You got a lot of options. I feel like Leipzig was running a lot of momentum, and then you also have Timo Werner, who's constantly in the headline saying, I'm looking elsewhere already. I want to play in Liverpool, so who knows how his team might respond to that. His teammates, are they going to look for him? Is he going to be? Yeah. So, I mean, whenever you have a player on your team who's open about not wanting to play or wanting to play somewhere else, then, I mean, for sure that might have an effect on chemistry. I don't know, but honestly, I'm taking this as a blank restart. Whatever we thought about teams before might be somewhat partially true, but you don't know what teams are going to come out on fire or not. It's like the beginning of the season. You don't know if you're going to drop 6 on someone or get 6 dropped on you.
Well, they'll figure it out hopefully soon enough, right? That first match. After that first match, they'll probably tighten up a little bit and figure things out. You also have to consider, and this is probably not the case with most teams because of the way that modern football is and how transfers work, right? But take Liverpool, right? That team has been together now 2 years, right? A team that is well trained and well drilled and is familiar with each other is probably better off than most. No, but again, 2 months off for anybody, but injury or not, is not ideal, right? And yeah, Leipzig again. It's kind of a conflicting thing for me with Leipzig because they're one of those Man City, PSG teams that I despise because they just quickly bought themselves up the ranks of German football, right? It's very, very corporate football that they've got, but at the same time, their style of play is friggin' entertaining. They score a lot of goals.
They did light work with Tottenham, so
yeah, they demolished Tottenham, and they're still in the Champions League, which is not something that Dortmund can say, right? So they got that going for them. Now, just 1 point behind Leipzig, we have Gladbach, Borussia Mönchengladbach. I totally butchered that German pronunciation, I'm pretty sure, but they're on 49 points. And then in 5th place, Leverkusen still kind of hanging in there on 47. So between Bayern Munich in 1st place and Leverkusen in 5th place, there's an 8-point gap. So lots to play for, a lot of jockeying for position for the Champions League, for Europa there. And again, like you said, always in Germany, always in Germany, Bayern's is favorite, right? It's Bayern's league to lose. And this might be the best that they've looked since Guardiola left, right? Because after Guardiola, they had Kovac, right? Or they brought Heinkes back, right? Or
they had Kovacic for the last season and a half.
Niko Kovac, right? And then he didn't really convince.
Hecknes was there for, I think, half a season.
Yeah. Yeah, because Guardiola has been at Man City now for at least 4 seasons, right? 3 or 4, or this is his 4th season.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, no, they're always the favorites. But both Dortmund and Leipzig look pretty prime to at
I,
least make it difficult for them towards the end. One thing I do worry about though too, for Dortmund at least, is that um, lack of a fan presence. They sell out almost every match, or yeah, every match there. And this weekend they start with probably the most difficult test of the top teams in Germany. Is they play Schalke, which is a local derby. It's a big match, and a match which they've choked in at home, even in recent times. So they have the toughest test when it comes to restarting this weekend. Bayern, meanwhile, faces Union Berlin, who's in their first ever season in the Bundesliga. And then Leipzig plays Freiburg, who's kind of mid-table, 8th place right now, kind of historic for them, right? Kind of pushing for those Europa League spots. So, man, we're kind of rusty because we haven't had to make any picks in a while, but we're going to make 3 picks for strictly Bundesliga picks for this weekend. So again, we'll start with probably the biggest attraction, the juiciest matchup on paper, the Ruhr Derby in Germany there. Borussia Dortmund versus Schalke. Again, Dortmund of Erling Haaland and Jadon Sancho and Marco Reus versus Schalke, who's got a pretty nice team, who is coached by David Wagner. David Wagner used to coach in the Premier League. He brought, what's that team called? Huddersfield Town up from the Championship, and then got fired, and now he's coaching at Schalke, and he's got some nice pieces, including Weston McKennie, the American. They've got a couple of English players there on loan. They have this kid called John Joe Kenny there from, I believe he plays for Everton. He's been beasting it for them. It's a tough matchup. So I don't know. Who do you got? I'll let you start off.
Do you know where they're playing at?
It's in Dortmund. It's at the Signal Iduna Park.
I don't know. An empty Dortmund stadium. We saw how Dortmund came out when they played PSG in an empty stadium. It seemed like, they looked flat.
It was in Paris though too.
It was in Paris, and Paris was, out to get them for taunting, but I think they have enough quality to get the win. I mean, teams are back in business. I think the better teams on the top of the table are going to get their wins. I think Dortmund gets a relatively easy win.
You got W for Dortmund?
Yeah, I got Dortmund here.
I agree. I got Dortmund as well. I almost wanted to say tie because I was reading a little bit more about Schalke today, but again, I don't watch them enough to be confident for the W. But I will say they've got some nice players there, and they're on the come up. So definitely a good match to watch. Now, one thing I want to try to do more too, because I know one thing that limits us in America is listings, right? You can't watch all of these matches everywhere, right, without having the fancy cable package. So Andres is looking out for y'all and reminded me that this match is on, at least one of these matches is, right, the Bayern match is on Unimas, which is on, just a regular ass TV here in the States.
Like channel 60 or 60, or I think it's 60, yeah.
Yeah, in Chicago, at least. It's in it's Univision's like secondary channel. So I believe most basic digital, airwaves pick that up. So there should be some German soccer on your TV.
Or Fox Sports if you have it.
Or Fox Sports, that's right. If you do have Fox Sports, or is it FS1, right? Should be on there. Or Fox Soccer Channel. I think Fox Soccer Channel is still a thing too. I no longer have that package, so I don't know. But I guess both Andres and I are calling Dortmund over Schalke, and that's again a big match in Germany. That's a local derby, so if you can, watch that one. The one that is probably going to be televised here because of the clout and the recognition, Bayern Munich versus Union Berlin.
Not much there, I don't think, because Union Berlin's in 11th, fighting clear of relegation, but, in 11th place.
That's why I hesitated. I was like, is it even ask? Like, I think we're both going to pick Bayern for this, right? Like, again, great story. Union Berlin in their very first season in the Bundesliga. And like you said, probably not in danger of going back down. But we're talking against the Bavarian Giants here, right?
I got Bayern.
Right? All right. Let me jot that down. And then the final one, I think we're going to be identical in all of our picks, so it won't even really matter this week, right? But we'll see. Leipzig plays Freiburg. Who you got?
I think I might go with a tie here.
You going to go with a draw?
Yep.
Yeah, Freiburg is on the come up. And again, I don't really think there might, like you said, there might not be momentum given that nobody's played in 2 months. But Leipzig looked like they were kind of in a bit of a bad patch there in the league before everything was put on pause. So
I think they drew a couple games and maybe lost one. They weren't picking up a lot of points.
They were in second and putting up. They tied Bayern. That was a big match at Bayern Munich. And ever since then, they've kind of been slumping a little bit. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt just because, again, I like the young pieces and how fast they play there. Even though fuck them as an establishment, as an institution.
Hot take.
So you got the draw?
I got the draw. I think Freiburg, because they were out for a little while, I think they continue on, fighting for at least Europa. So got to take down some big teams on the way.
So there you have it, folks. We both have Dortmund over Schalke. We both have Bayern over Union Berlin. And Andres has got Leipzig drawing Freiburg, while I've got RB getting the W. So again, for those of you itching for live sport, for those of you who love soccer, be on the lookout for the Bundesliga this weekend. And then, don't fret. On the horizon, we've got the Portuguese league starting back up. We've got the Turkish league. I know these aren't like the most exciting or thrilling leagues, right? But they're coming back. And then Spain and Italy is back in training. So hang in there, everybody. Soon enough, this will all be over. And we'll be able to enjoy, hopefully, the conclusion of a lot of these close races in the big European leagues. Don't forget, it's only 4 points between first place and second place in the Bundesliga. So it's Bayern's to lose. So check out how that unfolds beginning this Saturday. I can't wait. That's all we got for you guys today. As far as football, just before we do go, do want to remind you guys, do believe there is some recent full heel watch-alongs. I know Ryan and Rafa did the Triple H's very first match and did some of the Triple H stuff recently. So again, if you're into wrestling, old school, prime days of our youth wrestling, check it out. Also, if you're into UFC, MMA, it's coming again this weekend. I don't know. I want to say there is going to be a watch-along fight companion for that. TBD. Be on the lookout, and be on the lookout for all other stuff from the Full Heel Network. Once again, thank you for joining us. Share if you like the show. Give us a like, subscribe to the network. But most importantly, give us your comments. Let us know what you think. Who are your favorite teams? Who are your favorite players? Who do you think is going to win the Bundesliga?
Let us know what you want, who you want us to talk about for the Bundesliga. We'll come out red hot.
And hopefully next week we can come back with some better news and some really good matches to talk about. So thanks again.
And Johnny.
And Johnny, we missed them. for Andres and Rafa and myself. We'll see you guys later. Thanks again. Peace out.